Welcome to the show where we focus on African leadership and development. This week we take a look at the Kenya Economic Update released by the World Bank. We have an incredible panel. We get your views on the issues. And as always, we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I'm Julie Gichuru. This week on Africa Leadership Dialogues, we take a look at the Kenya Economic Update. The World Bank releases this report annually, and we have an incredible panel that takes a look at the insights. Our panel:
Benson Thuku, Business Development Manager for HF Development and Investment Limited. Rose Ngugi, Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis. The PS Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development, Architect Ida Munano, and Dr. Wagasha, Presidential Delivery Unit. This episode was shot during the launch of the Kenya Economic Update Report at Intercontinental Hotel in Nairobi.
Time to get straight to the discussion.
Please, let's start by each of you sharing your overview.
It's such a great thing seeing all of us here thinking housing, because this is an area, as the State Department of Housing and Urban Development, we are actually burning the morning light so that we can give a solution and we can give an answer. And when we see a great team like this with the kind of reflections that we are having here, we are very encouraged, because where we are at in housing, it takes a collaborative effort for us to achieve the kind of delivery that is expected. We are looking into the strategic direction this country needs to take in terms of housing delivery. We are looking into issues of land, because that's a great issue here. And we want to see within the setup that we have, because one reasoning we've had around ourselves is that most of the land in Kenya is with the private sector. So we are saying, how do we leverage on this? Are we going to give incentives? What is it that we need to do so that the private sector can be pretty active? And then we are looking into technologies. What kind of technology? Menaz actually mentioned just now, we are using technologies which are very, very expensive. And we are looking into industrial building systems so that we can be faster in our delivery of houses. We are also looking into how we can start leveraging on the kind of finances which are with SACCOs, the finances which are with pensions. And we are trusting by the time we get out of Naivasha, we'll have a statement that gives hope to the people of this country in terms of housing.
Dr. Wagasha, I come to you now, and really would love your overview, the macro perspective as well as the perspective on the housing situation.
Yes, we can crack it. I'm highly positive and optimistic on the Kenyan economy. I agree entirely with the governor, about the important pillars of the economy, the financial sector, a very strong private sector, and a very strong labor force, actually strengthened now by the demographic dividend, which is really an untold story in Kenya about the capabilities of the bulge between 15 years and 64 years to produce growth. Let me tell you just a slight sort of indicator on the housing sector, how Ethiopia cracked it. Ethiopia invited a strategic investor into the housing sector indirectly. They invited a maker of cement. Cement is the key element in construction. Every construction. This investor was an African investor called Dangote. And the only incentive from the tax side that the government gave this investor was a cut in electricity costs. You cut electricity costs. This investor pushed up the making of cement in Ethiopia. The price came down by 60%. that has spouted an enormous construction boom. Anyone who has been in Ethiopia recently can see the country is in construction.
Rose, let me come to you first. The knowledge, the information, the statistics that you must have can really enrich our conversation. Just give us your perspective.
There is a lot that the government has initiated. There's a lot of, for example, commitment. Just look at the recent budget that we are taking for 2017-2018. There is quite a lot of commitment by the government to maintain, first of all, macroeconomic stability. Yes, the fiscal deficit may look like it's very high. There's a commitment to bring it down even to the convergence at the regional level in the medium term. And if you look at the Vision 2030, one of the key pillars that we talk about is having or maintaining macroeconomic stability. And I'm very sure that we are walking the talk. There's quite a lot of incentives that have also been given in that budget to try and bring up the private sector in various areas, not just in manufacturing, but also even in the housing. And the recent M-Akiba is a clear demonstration that we have so much money in circulation, but I think what we don't have is a tool or an instrument actually to bring together that money to something. Maybe we had a bond that is targeting housing, we could have collected a lot of money in a very short time, and possibly that is the direction that we need to go. But I like also the fact that with this report, there is an emphasis on productivity, increasing or enhancing productivity of agricultural sector. One of the key things you note is that Kenya is relying more on agricultural sector, not just for employment, but also to see that we can move towards food security. And housing as a basic need is just one of the items, but focusing on agriculture is also going to give us the other basic need, and that is the food item.
Thank you so much for that. Now, Benson, I come to you. Before I come to a very focused question on housing, give us an overview on the reports that we've seen.
In terms of the general economic outlook, I'll agree more with what was presented. I think in the near future, in the near term, we'll have a dip in terms of the economic growth. We have a lot of headwinds coming our way, especially in terms of drought, in terms of access to finance, and I'll tend towards the interest caps, which is mainly affecting us, and even for us as developers, because HF is a developer and is a mortgage financier as well, we are experiencing a lot of headwinds. But Julie, if you allow me, I'd like to make a comment about housing itself in terms of affordability and the statistics that have been raised by World Bank. In terms of supply of housing, I think it's much less than 50,000. To me, you cannot quantify supply if it's not usable. You cannot say that we have a supply of, say, 10,000 units by virtue of looking at just the approvals, by virtue of just looking at what has been approved by National Construction Authority or by the county governments. If the product is not usable, if it's not occupied, then it has not been fully supplied. So what I will urge the government is probably when you're quantifying the supply of housing units, focus more on the occupation certificates. What has been issued as an occupation certificate, that's a functional house, that's a usable house.
Stay with the African Leadership Dialogues.
Do you have a sense, any additional sense of some of the underlying factors that are causing us problems that maybe are not spoken of often enough? And then also, the SACCO sector. Maybe you have some thoughts and comments on that as well.
Yes, we do agree that the Buruburu developments, Umoja, all of those were great. They were very good for the people. Actually, as a family, we benefited from that when that development happened. And I'm always telling people how it was beautiful, it was clean, there was no uncontrolled development. But we all know that the scenario has greatly changed now in the sense that we have two levels of government. We have devolution, we have the housing responsibility function of the county government, and the national government gives policy direction. And I've just told you that we've developed a number of policies so that we can give direction on this. And you know also that like Mombasa has made an attempt to do such developments. Nairobi as well has made an attempt, but we've become pretty litigant. Every time we take a step forward, there is something happens and we are back again to square one. So I think even ourselves as the citizenry, we need to give the government a chance to move forward. And I'd also like to comment on, somebody asked about, we got the SDG 11, and what we are telling you is that we are on it, and this is about leaving nobody behind, so we shouldn't have those people in the slum areas, in the informal settlements. And this is what we've been talking about all this morning, about giving adequate housing, giving secure environment in housing. So we are on it as a government, and we are moving forward.
I believe you are aware that the SDGs now are part of the performance contracting for all of government, which is absolutely critical. And just to say, this also applies to health, because having good housing means sanitation, means access to water, so it transforms so many things. Benson, your perspective.
Thank you, Julie. From us as a private sector, we first thank you, the government, for doing a lot in terms of infrastructure developments. But what we are saying, that's not enough. Speculative pricing is really killing our business in terms of developers. Once a tarmac road comes to your land, the price shoots up 3 times. That means my responsibility of providing affordable housing is gone. I can't. And what we are pleading with the government, and in fact, Mena's pointed it out in terms of the PPPs. If we could get more of PPPs in terms with the county governments or the national governments, where we can get rebates in terms of pricing of the land, services that are being incorporated within the land, I think as a private sector, we might manage to cater for the need of affordable housing. But if I could just answer the question on why can't we have more of Buruburus? For those who don't know, HF Group was the developer of Buruburu and Komarok, and their subsidiary, formerly known as Kenya Building Society, which rebranded to HF Development and Investment, where I sit as a business development manager. In that project, CDC provided all the equity to do the housing developments. And land, at that time, the cost of land was peanuts. At that time, they provided the land with services in terms of water, electricity. All we had to do is just provide the access roads. In the current day, the price of land has shot up the roof. In fact, due to the zoning requirements, which the county government is now reviewing, we'll have to over-densify to at least achieve certain prices that are deemed affordable within the market. The other thing that's affecting us so much is that as a private developer, I have to make profits. And for me to make profits, even if I have a smaller profit margin, I'll have to go for mass developments. Now, there's no enough land to do mass developments. And even if there's enough land to do mass developments, within that area, the zoning does not allow for densification. The construction cost has been mentioned a lot. The cost of materials is really going up. We're really trying hard to negotiate with the suppliers, even going as much as China to get quality products to bring to our market so that we can lower the construction cost.
Let me come to you, Rose, with your perspectives as we wind up. Thank you.
I want just to look at one item that has been brought up from the floor, and this is to do with the inclusiveness of growth that we are talking about. And also the quality of FDI. It's very true that there is a lot we can learn from FDI. And of course, it's not the small amounts that you look at, it's actually the quality. And the quality can be measured also in terms of the linkages that it can bring in. Recently, you've seen the efforts, negotiations, the government efforts to attract back the automobile industry. And what would bring a value for it is if we can also strengthen the subcontraction of this industry. I know that in Japan and other developed countries where we have automobile industries, one of the things that you find is that the small and medium enterprises play a key role in providing for some of the parts that go into the automobile. So you'll find there is one who will be subcontracted to do the windscreen or the wipers and the like. So that's the model, again, that we should actually adopt here. And this would help in terms of improving the quality, even technology transfer to the micro and small enterprises, and also give them a chance for innovation, to be more innovative and to improve their competitiveness.
Dr. Wagasha, I end with you strategically. And so how can you support moving forward? How do you support the effort to ensure that private sector is engaged, development partners are able to be engaged to ensure that a transformation does happen?
It is extremely important to, maybe in the next 5 years, there's a window to inject at the transformative economy. And that transformative economy is investment-led, as I mentioned. The medium and small enterprise sector in this country is an opportunity ignored. The sector is now producing about 30% of output. It is employing, by way ahead of the formal sector, over 14 million employees, compared even to the manufacturing sector, which employs about 2.8 million people. This sector now employs way ahead, over 14 million people. It is ignored by the credit markets, it's ignored by policy, and it is producing about 30% of GDP and employing about 3 or more times the formal sector. So agreeing with Dr. Ngugi, extremely important in the transformation to link the micro and small enterprise sector to the formal sector and treat them in a unity that yields growth and employment in an investment-led strategy.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the World Bank Country Director, Diarra Tugaya, to give us her remarks.
So one thing that I wanted to also say is, maybe in response to some of the panelist elements, is that the question on the informal sector, I have to say this is one of the questions. We've been working on it for so many years. But the question is, do you want the informal sector to go into the formal sector, or do you want to ask yourself the question, is the formal sector right? Why do people go outside of the formal sector and find a way of doing business in the informal sector? Is a reform process not one where you question, is a formal sector adequate to really attract people from the informal sector? I don't think we've been asking that question enough. On the survey of the SME, we financed it, so you sure will have one of the report talking about those activities. We thought it was something very important for us to understand. We are involved in the Bureau of Statistics quite heavily with what we call a P4R. So we think that one of the things that we need to really work on in Kenya is develop realistic statistics. So you will see some very interesting report coming out of the Bureau of Statistics, and these are things that will really inform our working with Kenya and inform the government of Kenya in some of the policy that they need to put in place.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Fascinating insights on Kenya's economy and housing and development. Let's take a look now at your views on the issues.
This week we asked you, how can provision of proper housing boost the economy of a developing country? Peter Kilonzo says, rising house prices generally encourage consumer spending and lead to higher economic growth.
Hi, my name is Josephine. I am watching ALD from Kiambu County. A rise in housing prices encourages consumer spending, which in turn leads to higher economic growth of a country.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
And now to Africa's Top 10.
On Africa's Top 10 this week, we feature the most expensive buildings in Africa. Many African nations are attracting investments from all over the world. These expensive and luxurious buildings look innovative both on the exterior and interior. This is according to Africa Ranking. Starting us off at number 10 is 88 On Field. This 25-story scraper is located in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Built in 1985, its estimated value is $40 million. Coming in at number 9 is Hilton Taba Resort and Nelson Village. Located in Taba, South Sinai, Egypt, this 12-story building was built by Israelis in the late 1980s. It is estimated to cost around $41 million. Positioned at number 8 is Maison de Deputes. The 7-story low-rise building is located in Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast. This impressively hulking pink pyramid is estimated to cost $50 million. Taking the number 7 spot is Hilton Durban. Located in Durban, South Africa, this expensive building has established itself as a landmark in the city and is estimated to cost $61 million. Slotted in at number 6 is Michelangelo Towers. This expensive and elite hotel building is located in Sandton, South Africa. It's valued at $64 million. At number 5 is the Pearls of Umhlanga. Located in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, the Pearls of Umhlanga is a 31-floor Dubai-style luxury residential and retail project. It's valued at $138 million. Portside Tower takes the number 4 spot. Located in Cape Town, South Africa, Portside Tower is designed to use low-energy technology and is the first large building in the country to almost exclusively use LED lighting. It is estimated to cost $138 million. Anchored in at number 3 is Corinthia Hotel Tripoli. Located in Tripoli, Libya, the Corinthia Hotel Tripoli is located in the center of the city. It is valued at $152 million. Coming in at number 2 is AU Conference Center and Office Complex. Located in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the main building is 99.9 meters tall. It is estimated to cost $200 million. At number 1 this week is Bibliotheca Alexandrina. Located in Alexandria, Egypt, Bibliotheca Alexandrina is a major library and cultural center. The library has a shelf space for 8 million books. The main reading room covers 70,000 square meters on 11 cascading levels. It is valued at $220 million. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
As always, we end with African words of wisdom. Our proverb this week: do not forget what it is to be a sailor because of being a captain yourself. Leadership is also about service, and service is about all of us. We all have a role to play. Private sector, government, development world, citizens. How do we come together and truly transform this continent? Blessings to you and blessings to